What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sacred Sunday to each and every one of you. I want to welcome all of our friends that are in the Zoom room here with us. And I want to welcome those of you who are watching on Facebook and on YouTube. Welcome to the Awakening World. Today, we're going to talk about something really important, and that is those habits that all of us have had or might have at one time or another. You could call that a habit, call it an addiction, call it a compulsion. But all of us have had those things in our life that we really enjoy. And then our enjoyment gets the best of us. And sometimes it's something as simple as really going through too much ice cream at the end of the day. And other times it might be too much alcohol or other substances. We've all, at some time in our life, had an addiction or compulsion that became a problem. And we all have friends and loved ones who have gone through that or might still be going through it. And so today we're going to do a wonderful show with 4 people I have tremendous respect for, sharing about their experiences and providing tips and tools and practices to manage those compulsions, those addictions, and to do it with love and compassion. So I really am glad that you're all here. It's going to be a good show. And it's going to be one of those shows that we're going to definitely take a lot of questions from the audience. So it's a good idea to join us. And I want to invite all of you that are watching on Facebook or YouTube or one of our broadcast partners like the Conscious Awakening Network or Humanities Team to come on into the Zoom room. I'm inviting you to join the Global Peace Tribe. And it's really easy to do that. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com. globalpeacetribe.com. And that's going to take you to our website. You're going to learn all about the different shows that we do. There's the show we're doing today, our Sacred Sunday show. And click where it says register for the new season. And that'll take you to our registration page. And on the registration page, you'll see the shows that we do. We do 3 or 4 shows every week. On Wednesday night, we had a really fun show about being happily married to an Arcturian intergalactic channel. You remember the TV shows Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie? Well, we had kind of our own version of that. This tech engineer guy that finds himself married to a very advanced hybrid. What does all that mean? You'll have to go back and watch the replay, which is another reason to join us. Because when you do join, you're going to get an email every Monday that takes you to the replays of our shows. Last night, we had a wonderful show. We heard from Matt Kahn, Deepak Chopra, Michael Beckwith, Elijah Ray, all of whom have been regulars on this show. And then, of course, here's today's show, all about conscious recovery resources. So please do join the Global Peace Tribe. you'll get the Zoom room links to all of our shows for the next 4 months, from now all the way through the end of September. So join us. You'll be in the Zoom room and we'll be able to take your questions. And for those of you that are already in the Zoom room, so many of our regulars, so many people that I love, we've got people all the way from Ecuador to British Columbia, throughout the United States. And we even have Summer Joy Raymer. And Summer's going to share something really special with us a little bit later during our Global Peace Tribe announcements. But I'm going to start us off, as I always like to do on a Sunday. And for those of you that are new, we call this the Sacred Sunday Show. We are non-denominational. We honor all faiths and paths, and we always support spiritual practice. And our primary spiritual practice, if we promote any one thing, it's just to see the divinity in all, starting with yourself. So I'm going to lead a short practice, or a short meditation, I should say. And then beloved Omashar is going to play some music. And during the music, get up and move and groove. I see that Summer's here and Eleanor Joy is here. So I know there's going to be some moving and grooving to the dance, and just really feel his beautiful vibrations. And then we're going to meet our first two guests, India and Roland, to really talk about this incredibly important topic. So I want to invite all of you to start by just closing your eyes, unless you're operating a motor vehicle or on a bicycle. And let's start by just closing our eyes and dropping into breath. Consciously breathing at your own pace. And feel your feet on the ground, wherever you are. If you happen to be lying on a bed, then imagine your sacrum connecting to the earth. But as we breathe, I invite us to become present with our breath and present with our connection to the earth, to our true mother, Mother Earth Gaia. Consciously breathing, paying attention to your breath, and feeling your connection to Mother Earth. And as you breathe and drop into your connection to her, I invite you to open your heart and feel her profound love for each and every one of us. We are all children of the earth. And just as grand and large as this planet is, truly she is our Pacha Mama, our big mother, and she loves us unconditionally. And as she watches us, it's like a loving mother watching her children play without any judgment, without any criticism. And as you feel that, I invite you to feel the mother's love. And you can imagine the mother's love as Mother Earth Gaia. That's the image I like. You could also imagine the mother's love if you have a particular archetype that you relate to. The Virgin Mary, Mother Magdalene, Shekinah Ma. Any image that you feel a connection to of divine mother love for you. And invite you to feel that love and claim your own innocence. That no matter what any of us have done, any choices we made that we regret, any behaviors that we've had or may still have, underneath it all, we are innocent children of the eternal beloved, of life, of Mother Earth. So I invite us to all collectively embrace and find, if need be, our innocence, our purity, underneath the illusion of separation, underneath any guilt or shame or remorse we might have. In that spirit of innocence, in that spirit of remembering our divinity, may we open our hearts and open our minds to hear what India and Roland and TJ and Anne have to say. And may we continue to increase this innocence and open ourselves even more as we shift over to Oshar and his music.
Nothing in my life's the same. It seems my world is falling into the dust that gave it birth. Empty feelings find me deep in contemplation, waiting for the rise of trust to love once more. La da 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 da. Walking through these fields of Did you miss all of it? Okay. Walking
missed the last 2
through
minutes.
my fields of fear, before my attention, I don't live here anymore. I surrender to the flow that gives me new direction. All that's left to do is trust and fly. And we all know what we've come here for. And we all feel that our hearts are true. And together we will make it home. And we'll trust to
Beautiful. That's all. Give a little gallery view.
There's a little muting glitch in the middle. Is that not too much?
That was me. That was
Yeah.
me. That was me. What happened was, as I was flicking, I meant to go to replace spotlight on you, and then instead I accidentally mute. So I muted you for about 20 seconds until you caught it.
It was good. It was cool. There was a little glitch in your internet there, so let's hope it's good. So people must be sucking on the internet. So.
All right. Well, keep me apprised of how glitchy I am and am not.
All right. Namaste. Beautiful start. Love you.
Love you too. Thank you, Omashar. We'll hear much more from Omashar later on in the show. So I have a friend who's with us today. Her name is India, and she is somebody that I've had the good fortune to get to know as a friend. And she has a brand new book that is coming out this month, and we're going to hear all about it. And that book really inspired me to want to do today's show, because it is so important for us to get the best tools possible for dealing with those things that happen. Part of being human is that we have addictions. And India is an amazing woman. She has a wonderful story. And so, India, thank you for being here. Thank you for inspiring today's show. And I'd love for you to share with our audience a little bit about yourself and your story.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me here today. I'm really excited. Yeah, this is such a big topic. And my book, as you stated, is getting released this month. And it is about, a big part of it is about my recovery. And I got sober when I was 25. And I'm going into my 36th year of sobriety. And I spent 21 years way down in the throes of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was very, very active. It was, the fellowship was my whole world. Everything in the program was everything that I did. My partner that I was with for 17 years was sober. Everything we did was around our sobriety. And, 21 years later, I took the women that I sponsored through the traditions before I ever took them through the steps. And I was considered pretty hardcore, and I had a lot of limiting beliefs around the way that I did things. But I also believe that it was in part of what helped keep me sober when my life went into a complete and utter collapse in 2008. And I had 10 life crises in 10 months. I had a nervous breakdown with 21 years of sobriety. And I was on a massive spiritual path, and I didn't know what any of it meant. I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew that something big was happening. And, for me, all of a sudden, I just found my whole life at the age of 47, all of a sudden, I didn't know who I was without all my labels. Everything was from the outside. I knew where I was in my, in my community. I knew where I was in my sobriety. I knew what I was doing in my career, my relationship, all of it from the outside. And when it blew up in 2008, and I found myself not knowing this, but I was in the dark night of the soul for 5 years. And I was able to maintain my sobriety through that. And I've had a lot of people ask me how I was able to not drink when I had so many calamities happening at once. And, I really come from the philosophy, Scott, that, I don't believe that there is anything bad or wrong or mistakes. Everything is necessary for our growth, whatever that is. And, for me, I did a lot of rough and tumbling for many years, because all of a sudden, one day I'm going to 10 meetings a week, and I haven't been to a meeting in 14 years. And what transpired for me is that, AA gave me this beautiful foundation that set the course of my life. And my physical sobriety is the single most conviction that I have ever had in my life. And without my physical sobriety, nothing else would have existed. And I probably would have been dead by the age of 30. And, it was a rough and tumble there for a while. And I really believe that a big part of how I was able to stay sober through it was like a 12-year cycle I was in. And I knew inside of myself in all the years that I was in AA, I never danced with the drink. Like, it was not anything that I was like, well, someday I'll have a glass of wine, or someday, like, that was just not going to happen for me. And I have, tripped over myself and gone into my, addictive behaviors, whether it's bubble gum, because that's what I do when I get stressed out. It's just like, I'll chew toothpicks, I'll chew my fingernails, I'll chew bubble gum, anything that handles the stress when I get overloaded. But drinking has never been an option for me. I feel like it would be such a disservice to Alcoholics Anonymous that if I were to go out and drink after all these years. And I am so proud of the fact that I was able to walk through everything that I did. And I wrote a book about it that kind of really showed the trajectory of, if I would have gone out and drank, this is probably what would have happened. And because I stayed sober, even though I had a nervous breakdown, like a real life nervous breakdown, drinking was never going to be an option for me. It was going to dig me deeper into the hole that I was in. And I feel like all the work that I did in my sobriety, all the steps, all the traditions, all the service work at the delegate level, it kept me grounded, and I didn't have any skeletons in my closet. None. And so when things imploded for me, that was not the first place I went, was back to drinking. What I did is I white knuckled it for a lot of years until I found my path. And that is the path that I've been on, for the last probably 7 solid years. And, even though I don't participate in the fellowship anymore, I have an extreme amount of gratitude and respect for Alcoholics Anonymous, because without the physical sobriety, nothing else can happen. And so, it was a really, really big deal for me to maintain my sobriety. So thank you.
Thank you so much, India, for being here. We're going to, of course, hear a lot more from India. And any thoughts or questions that you have. India, I'm going to read to you right away one of the comments that just came in from Terry Russo. And this is a safe place, everybody, where we can share honestly about ourselves and about each other and what's going on. So thank you, India, for starting us off with that way. And Terry continues it by writing, "Thank you for sharing. I struggle sometimes to help my dual diagnosis patients who sometimes don't realize that I do my best to be present fully for them and to help them find their path. I see their tortured souls and send them healing energy as I try to treat them using the limited allopathic treatment, hoping they'll embrace a more holistic approach at some point when they're ready, sending maximum grace to everyone who continues to walk this path." Lynn and Leaf write, "We are of the same mindset. 18 years of recovered life is our life over death. Great spiritual practices helped, especially those by GPT. Thank you." And Eleanor Joy says, "I was thinking of you in the past few days, and now here you are, Terry." So that's kind of personal to Terry. So thank you, India. I'm going to bring on somebody I have a tremendous respect for. This is Roland Williams. And Roland was on the show a couple times before. We met him through Wholehearted, and we really love Wholehearted and their work. Roland is a master addiction counselor, lecturer, and consultant, and he's worked in all imaginable aspects of the addictions and mental health field, from founder and clinical director to curriculum author for 35 years. He knows his stuff, and he's also been sober for a very long time. Roland, welcome back to the Awakening World. Thank you for being with us this Sunday.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. I really like what you guys are doing, and it's an honor to be privileged, pleasure to be here. And I think just a little background on me. I was just telling Scott in India before we signed on that a week from yesterday, June 10th, I will celebrate 37 years clean and sober. And it's been quite a journey, and when I got clean in 1986, June of 1986, I got clean. I stopped using because I had a son. At that time, my son was 4 years old. I was so deep into my addiction that I never thought I would live to be 30. I was 29 when I got clean, and I was okay with not living to be 30. I was okay with that. I didn't care enough about myself to get clean at that time. But I did care enough about my son, and my son was my motivation to stop. And one of the things I've learned over the years is that people need a reason. People need a reason, and it's different for different people. And so one of the goals is to help people find a reason to stop, a good reason. Anyway, when I did stop, I hadn't worked at all when I was using. So all my teens and early 20s, I never had a job. I got high. That was my job. That was my pastime. And when I got clean, I decided that I wanted to do something to help people. I wanted to, instead of be the bad guy, I wanted to be a good guy. I wanted to switch hats, switch teams. And so I decided that I wanted to work in addiction treatment. That was my first job. And when I had 6 months clean and sober, in California at that time, you didn't need any credentials to be a counselor at all, therapist, you didn't need any credentials. And so I said, I want to be a counselor, and I got a job as a counselor with 6 months clean and sober. And about a year into that, I learned over that initial period of time for me that not drinking and using is not the same as being in recovery. Hold on, somebody's trying to call. I'm sorry. I don't know how to turn my phone off. Yeah, I didn't understand. I thought that just because I wasn't drinking and using that my life would get better. But drugs and alcohol are pretty powerful. Addiction itself is pretty powerful. It's a great anesthetic. It's a great social lubricant. It's a great stress reducer. It's a great energy giver. It's a great friend in the beginning. It's an ally. And it's pretty soon that friend turns into an employer, and then it turns into a slave master. And I had depended on getting high off of something for so long that when I stopped getting high, I didn't know how to deal with all of those other things. And just not using didn't make it go away. So long story short, with 13 months of not using and noticing I wasn't feeling that much better, working as a counselor and feeling like an imposter, I was at a crossroads in my early recovery. And I decided if I'm going to do this, I have to really dig in. I have to go all in, commit myself to this career and commit myself to my recovery. And my life changed. I got busy with it, as they say in Amsterdam. You get busy with it. I got busy with it. I got busy with the business of the work that I do, and I got busy with the business of recovery. I like what India said. I learned over the years that everybody has their own journey. Everybody has their own timetable, and what keeps me clean and sober might get somebody else drunk. I had to figure out that people have their own path. Let people be who they are. Let them discover what they need to discover. And like India, I agree that everything that we do is preparing us for what we're supposed to do, what we're going to do next. It's all preparation, all school. And so, for the last 36 years, I've been working in addiction treatment and mental health. I've written books. I have couple of workbooks out. One's called Recovery is a Verb, and it's got all kind of exercises in it to help people kind of move through the recovery process. I have another one focused on African-American issues. I'm an African-American man who comes from the South Side of Chicago, and I decided I wanted to give something back to this community that I've seen devastated by addiction. I wanted to give something back, and so I've taught addiction studies all over the place. I was the director of chemical dependency studies at Cal State East Bay. I've worked in all over the world, consulting with programs, helping open programs in India, Thailand, the Netherlands, the Philippines, the Dominican Republic. This is all I've been doing. I've been like on a mission. And I can't tell you how rewarding it's been for me to be that intimately involved in people's lives and being able to see the successes and getting reminded by the heartbreaks of how important this work is. My wife and I will be married 33 years next month, and we've had some physical challenges. She got sick, and like India referred to, stuff comes up. If it's easy, it's easy, and when it's hard, it's hard. And the trick to longevity with any of this stuff is to be able to do it when it gets hard. And so we had a scare, a pretty big scare. And sometimes, you feel like getting high is an option. I feel like, oh shit, I might need to take something to get through this. And it's not always about wanting to be high. It's about wanting to shut the brain off, shut these feelings off, shut these intrusive, persistent, loud, negative thoughts off. But I didn't. I've had to kind of go through all of the things that happens with a long period of life. That things happen and it gets rough and you get challenged, and life is difficult, as we know. And I've been able to do it all, without taking drugs and without drinking. But I do understand the struggle that people have. I do understand that everybody doesn't enjoy being clean and sober. I understand that addiction shows up in all kinds of different ways. Even when you stop drinking, if you decide to stop drinking and using, even if you stop drinking and using, that doesn't mean you stop wanting to get high. People are always looking for something to fix. I believe that we have a mistaken belief that if I don't feel good, something's wrong and I need to do something to feel better. I need to drink something, smoke something, shoot something, snort something, screw something, buy something, drive something, wear something, eat something, etc. So our potential for an addictive behavior exists in all kinds of different manifestations, sex, food, cigarettes, work, gambling, fighting, etc. So I tell people, I'm never going to be out of work. I can work as long as I want to work, because there's always going to be somebody out there that's going to need some support from the latest manifestation of where their addiction has showed up. And I see the correlation between addiction and mental health. I get that. I ran a psych unit at a hospital in San Jose for many years. So we had an inpatient psych unit, an inpatient substance abuse unit, and I saw the interaction between those things. So it's tough. It's been a tough few years. The last 4 or 5 years have been really hard on the world, not just this country, but the world, this region, and the Bay Area particularly. I know people come from all over to this World Peace Tribe, but Global Peace Tribe, but it's been tough, with the divisiveness, with the politics, with the catastrophes, with the floods and the fires and the accidents and the killings and all of that. I mean, the pandemic, so people have been called upon. You've been called upon to dig deep and find out what part of me do I have, what's in me to deal with this. I have a friend who I love very much who's dealing with some pretty serious physical challenges, and he's having to dig deep and say, okay, what do I need to do to take care of me? Because it's not easy right now. It's not easy. So I applaud you guys. Scott, I appreciate you, man, for your efforts to kind of bring some light in it and some peace and some harmony and some hope to the world. I think that's all we can do as individuals, is try to make the world a better place.
Thank you.
The last thing I'll say is I read somewhere recently, it said, be nice to people because you don't know what they're going through and you don't know what they've been through. And I like that. That's what I try to do. Thanks.
Absolutely. And I don't want that to be the last thing you say. Maybe the last thing for right now. You know what? I wore my Ganesha t-shirt because Ganesha is the remover of obstacles, right? And I thought, how perfect, and I love Ganesha and I love that vision. So we all remove the obstacles to vital health. So there's a couple of questions that have come in, which I want to put out to either or both of you to answer. One is George brings up that we all have addictions. It seems like America is an especially addicted society. So any thoughts you have about just if part of being an American, and most people here are American, we have a few people from Canada and Ecuador. And then Dia Therese asks, please speak to the place in history of addiction at this time of global and human ascension. We do a lot of shows on this show, Roland. I know India knows that. A lot of our shows are about raising consciousness. It's all about the awakening world. What are your thoughts about the correlation between the increase of addiction and compulsion and the raising of consciousness? So I'd love to hear both of you responding to those questions.
All right.
Go first. Okay.
Yeah, this is so multi-layered. I found through my own journey is that I believe that addiction is about the lack of connection to self and ultimately to others. Most of us, and this was my journey, and it didn't just happen once, it happened 3 times. When I was living outside of myself, and what I mean by that is that it was all about my outside world, my retirement, my career, my labels, everything was outside of myself. It wasn't inward. I lived my life looking out. And when my life collapsed, that was one thing. It took me 3 years. I started putting it back together. Then I got breast cancer. Went through that. And then I started putting it back together from the outside again. And the universe was like a big cat, just sideswiped me. And it was like, oh, and through a series of events, I ended up in a yoga studio. And that was where I started to understand that it was about my lack of connection to myself. And that is where, because I can even see it in myself to this day, even with 35 years of sobriety. It doesn't matter if it's a case of soda or a pack of bubble gum. It's what is my intention behind it? What am I trying to escape from? And what I came to through in the last 14 years and through my journey is I really got into understanding what shadow work is. And to me, Scott, to your question about ascension, is that shadow work is necessary. Those are our blind spots. Those are our shadow self. It's the hidden aspects of us that we haven't looked at yet, whether it's from a crisis, whether it's from trauma, whether it was from something that happened last week or the childhood. That's the place that we operate from, is the unhealed place, because that's how we perceive the world, is from that place. And I have been watching this with drug addicts and alcoholics for a long time. And I believe it's the lack of connection to self. It's why we're always going outward for something. Doesn't matter whether it's a glass of wine. It doesn't matter. You can over-exercise. That in itself can be unhealthy. So it's a matter of what is our intention behind what it is that we're doing, that we're trying to escape from. And we're escaping because we don't have a connection to self. And I've been there. I've gone up and down on that roller coaster through the trials and tribulations of my life over the years. And I really believe, and I'm a pattern seer and a dot connector. And what I have witnessed with those in recovery, myself included, is that addicts, we are, we're generally considered the black sheep of the family, right? That is the social term. That's the black sheep of the family. I believe that the addict or the alcoholic is actually the healer of the family. I believe that every family has one. And I have watched this over and over again, and it's fascinating to watch all the different layers of everything that comes in for us to be able to evolve in consciousness. We cannot hold an ascension, a vibrational ascension, if we haven't done our shadow work. It's not possible, because those things will always rear their ugly little heads for us. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I, even in my own life and witnessing many, many people over a very long period of time, and even though I haven't been to a meeting in a long time, I still have a lot of friends who are in recovery, trying to be in recovery, doing recovery a different way. And so I see all the patterns in everyone that I know that have had like at least 15 years and then went out and now they're sober again with a significant amount of time. I'm curious. I'm like, what caused you to take that drink after 17 years? And it was always led back to something personal that someone said or did to them that was an unhealed wound in which they went back to drinking again. And I was like, this is really fascinating. And I started to see all the many layers of what happens when we're not connected to ourselves. And it's not an easy thing to do because we're all raised to be outside of ourselves. All of us are. So I'll stop there.
Huh. Well, I love how you speak, and our audience is relating to you so beautifully. A lot of positive comments are coming in. So thank you. And let's bring up Roland and see what Roland has to say.
Well, I agree with a lot of what India said. I think that probably the most profound spiritual advice I ever got was sit still and do nothing. And that's not our way. I think a lot of people, it's not a lot. I think at another contributor to addiction, and it takes away from any idea of ascension to a higher consciousness, is this idea of, I need to fix it. I need to fix it. I can't just sit in this. I had a client tell me once, he was going through a really hard time, and I was trying to give him some ideas of how to make it better. And he was saying, no, man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. He said, but I got to feel this to the quick. I have to feel this to the quick, meaning I have to just feel all of this. I don't want to medicate it. I don't want to eat it away. I don't want to screw it away. I don't want to smoke it away. I'm just going to sit with this and feel it, feel what I need to feel. And it's that introspection. It's that time with yourself to find out what's really going on that I think helps you get to a place of a higher consciousness. You gain more insight, you gain a better perspective, your planning is better. For example, I don't make any major decisions when I'm in a bad place. When I'm in a bad place, I don't send any emails, I don't call anybody, and I don't decide on anything. I sleep on it. I give it some time. Because in that time and space where I'm just contemplative, where I'm just sitting with it, I'm feeling it to the quick, I tend to have a better understanding of where I'm at and what's going on. A lot of us are so, we can get so impulsive, we can get so reactive, we can get so impatient. And that leads to, in my experience, it leads to not as good decision making. So I think, and I also think you have to want to have, I remember another client who eventually overdosed. He was an emergency room physician. And I do a group for impaired healthcare professionals that I've been doing since 1991. And I was talking to him and I was saying, your life could be a lot better if you were willing to do a little work. If you're willing to put a little work in, you could have a much better life. And he thought about it. He pondered that for a minute. And he said, nah, he said, I'm kind of cool where I'm at. I'm used to this, where my life is. I don't really feel like doing a whole bunch more work. I'll just coast where I'm at. And, and he coasted to an early grave. I had another client that told me one day, I told him, I said, man, I'm worried that you don't seem worried about your relapses. This is a guy who would relapse every few months. He would be clean and sober, committed to this healthy life, and then his dark side, his shadow side would take over. If you believe in a higher power, you should believe in a lower power too. That's my thought. And so his lower power would take over, and then he'd talk him into going out and getting drugs again. I said, you don't seem very worried about your relapses. They scare me to death, but you don't seem very. He said, well, I'm not worried. I said, well, why not? He said, because I know everything's going to be all right. And I found him dead in a bungalow in Thailand two weeks after that conversation. So I think by avoiding this introspection and getting to know who you are and seeking to have some higher level of understanding and consciousness, awareness, etc., by avoiding that work, I think there are potential consequences. Because when that shadow side, that dark side is driving the car, it takes us to some pretty dark places. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both. I'm really appreciating this conversation, and I'm also really appreciating what's going on in the chat box. There's a lot of really important feedback going on. And I just want to emphasize how important it is for us not to stuff our pain, but to create a safe space in which we can sit with those parts of our life that we have pain around. And most of the time, if you go deep enough, it's shame. It's usually shame or guilt. And just a reminder, what's the difference? Guilt is usually we feel bad about something we did or didn't do. We feel guilty about actions taken or not taken. Shame is we feel bad about who we are. Shame is where we feel that there's something fundamentally wrong with me. And as a coach that's worked now with thousands of people, I've come to see that guilt and shame are almost always at the root of a person's pain. And there's many ways to resolve that. There's connecting with someone who loves you, like my dog who just came up to me right now, working with a coach, working with someone like India or myself, working with someone like Roland. There's also, I'm looking at Summer Joy, who we'll hear from in a moment. There's dance, sometimes dance in a way, and I'll have Summer talk about that in a moment. There are many ways that we can get back in touch. Remember, that's why I did in my meditation at the beginning, getting back in touch with our innocence, with the pure being that we are. I've had the good fortune to be with the twin Ray. I'm in Ashland, and I've been with them for the last almost 2 weeks now. And when I'm with them in person, they just embody pure love. When they look at you, even when you talk about the hard stuff, they're just beaming you with pure love. And when I'm at my best as a coach, that's where I'm at. No matter what someone's sharing with me, I see beyond whatever terrible thing they said or did, and just see the beautiful being. And remember that nobody is broken. Nobody is broken. Nobody is permanently damaged. That's an illusion. That's bullshit. What's true is that life can be really hard. And sometimes when life is hard and we feel desperate to get some need met, in that desperation, we make choices that we regret. And if there's something in your life that you regret, that you just can't let go of the guilt or the shame, I invite you to go back and think about where you were at when you made that choice. You were probably desperate for something. You were desperate for love. You were desperate to be heard. You were desperate to just feel safe. And when we're desperate, we're in animal bodies. We're spiritual beings, but we're in animal bodies. And that desperation can drive us to make those choices we might regret. So I'm going to take a quick look at some of the comments that have come in and then bring India and Roland up for one more round, and then we're going to go to Summer. Eleanor Joy brings up that there are so many other addictions: shopping, clothes, data ads, internet, Facebook, YouTube, social media. These are all addictions, right?
They're distractions.
Yeah, distractions. And definitely we can just get in that habit of scrolling, right? Scrolling through the internet. I read something, there was a comic yesterday, a meme, where it was, I'm scrolling to read the things I don't want to know about. All right. Yeah, it's like, but there's an addiction. Terry Russo writes, I've been through that conversation too many times with patients who are less concerned with their relapses than me as their healthcare provider. I found that if I care more than they do about themselves, that imbalance never ends well. I've yet to figure this out better after decades of trying to help. So Roland might have a thought about that. Wanda says, unconditional love is a hard concept to grasp. Eleanor Joy writes, we can be there for another when and if they reach out already and willing. Otherwise, we can beam love from our heart to their heart, honoring their journey and not making it wrong, no matter what it looks like. Yes, Eleanor Joy. That's important. And I'd love to hear what India and Roland have to say about how we support our friends and family that are struggling. Scotty brings up, for me, I'm so thankful that a guitar showed up in my life. Absolutely. Playing me a musical instrument is a wonderful alternative to a substance form of getting high. And then here's a question from Dorina Joe. Can you comment on food addictions that have become so prevalent worldwide, and on the added aspect of difficulty of not having the option of complete abstinence? In other addictions, we can completely abstain, but we can't from food. It's a good question. Maybe India, you first, and then we'll go to Roland after that.
I don't know about food specifically because I don't have a food addiction. I don't know if I think it's just the means. I don't think it's necessarily what you're chasing matters, whether it's food or gambling or working out or sex or shopping, or it's all the same. What our choice is that gives us that sense of ease and comfort, I don't think that really matters as much as what is going on inside of me. What is going on inside of me? And this is what I love about shadow work, because shadow work takes us inward. It takes us inward. It takes us inward. So when I feel like having nachos for dinner because I'm super busy, right? It's a matter of, and when I stop myself, I'm like, why do you think this is a good idea, India? Why do you think nachos is a healthy choice here? Well, and then I can go off in one of two directions. I either justify it and I start going down, well, it's because I'm busy and blah, 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 blah. Or I can stop myself and make a different choice that's healthier for me. And I can only do that when I go inward. If I go outward and stay outward, I'm never going to find the answer as to why I'm making this choice. And this is where shadow work over the last several years, where I had to go deep, deep, deep into my shadow, was to understand how the shadow plays a part in our world. Plays a very, very big part. For me, Alcoholics Anonymous, it's designed to take you into your behaviors. You do a 4th step and you do a 5th step. It goes into your behaviors, our resentments, our anger, our frustration. What it is not designed to do is to take us deeper into our traumas and our crises, so that way we can alchemize them and transmute them. And that's where outside help really comes in handy. And I don't mean that if you have a mental illness to get outside help. I mean things that are nurturing to our spirit. What else is nurturing to our spirit? We don't just get into a relationship with our partner and just stay there and never nurture it and, try outside things. But for me personally, I did that in Alcoholics Anonymous. I stayed within the confines of the traditions and the tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what happened for me is that's why I got pummeled so bad, because this was my soul's journey, was to get me onto another path so that I could evolve in my consciousness in the manner in which I needed to. And it's just, there's so many different layers to this. And, there's no one way. Roland has a whole beautiful journey in his own in the 37 years, me with 21, and then going into a whole other different path that India didn't set myself on, but my higher self did. It sent me on a whole new path. And, now I'm like, oh, I see the much bigger picture. And the more that I evolved in my consciousness, the more clear I became around my own behaviors, my trauma. This is the work that I do. I help people unwind from the programming, the conditioning, the beliefs that we pick up, what is taught to us by whoever raised us. I had to do a lot of unpacking, and that's what I do with my clients. We have to unpack before we repack. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because who wants to take a suitcase full of winter clothes to Hawaii, right? We don't want to do that. We need to unpack that suitcase from all these things that aren't serving us and get a check with who am I? Where am I in my alignment? What do I believe in? What is working for me? And like Roland said, it's just like what works for one doesn't work for another. And it's the grace in allowing people to be in their process, whatever that is. I don't even know what my own life has in store for me. To think that I know what your life has in store for you, it's not going to happen.
Thank you so much, India. I want to let people know, and I still don't have the link, by the way, to your event for today. So if you put that link into the chat box, just put it in the chat box.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to take people to your main website where you can learn all about India. And it's her name, IndiaZoe.com. INDIA, India like the country, Zoe, ZOE, IndiaZoe.com. And here is the book that's coming out. And she's going to have a special reading of the book today. We're going to talk about that in a moment and tell you where you can learn all about that and join her. And of course, you can learn more about her story. And she's also does coaching. So definitely put your name and email address in here where you can find out more about her book, more about her work. And you may want to actually work with her as a coach if you're feeling really, really drawn. She's obviously a powerful, wonderful person. You could also follow her at I am India Zoe on social media. So, India, have you been able to put that into the chat box?
I am. It's not working, so I'm asking someone to try to send it to you again.
Okay,
So,
and you know what we'll do is we'll come back to you then. We'll come back and let's hear what Roland has to say. Roland, this is kind of your chance to answer any questions and kind of final thoughts.
I just want to respond to the question about eating disorders or food. One of the differences with some processed addictions, like with food, you can't stop eating. So it's actually a little bit easier when you're using a substance or something that you can just stop. Like I can just not drink, but I can't not eat. You don't want to not have sex. You don't want to not work out. So what happens for people, the challenge is to help people define some sort of bottom line behavior. Like what would it look like for me to be eating in a healthy way? And so you have to define this, the approach that we use in those kind of issues is to help people define what would healthy eating look like for me. You have to define what does recovery look like with something that you're going to continue to use. The same thing with people that aren't ready to quit 100%. Some people want to, they want to try to control it before they decide they have to give it up altogether, whether that's alcohol or drugs. Some people say, no, I don't want to stop altogether. I just want to learn to control it. And so you help people work with what would control look like? What would you feel good about in your relationship with drugs or alcohol or food or gambling or sex? What would be a way to do that you wouldn't feel so horrible, that the consequences wouldn't be so negative? And then you kind of help people work around defining what a healthy relationship with that behavior or that substance would look like. And then when they are unable to, the two things will happen. They'll either discover that I can control it, I can do it like in a way that doesn't cause negative consequences, or I can't. And in either case, you plan accordingly. So I think that's really important, that to recognize that even the idea of recovery can look very, very different from someone. Some people can consider themselves in recovery and they're only drinking twice a week. Where for some schools of thought or some versions of recovery, drinking twice a week would not be considered recovery. So it's important, again, to recognize that people have their own journey and their own path. And what I try to do is, we always talk about, is meet people where they are. Let's start with where you're at. Let's start with what you're willing and able to do. Let's start with what you think is important. I believe that people are the expert of their own lives. I have a lot of ideas about what you could do, but I want to see what your ideas are. And so I work with people to kind of flesh out that, they're what they think they want to do, can do, willing and able to do. So, yeah, I think it's fascinating work. It's fascinating being with people on this journey because everybody's journey is different. Everybody's timetable is different. And just to be invited to be part of that, it's been pretty cool. I've seen some incredible transformations, and I've seen the incredible power of connections. I think I'll end my part with this. I think what's so important is having a tribe, having connections, having some people that you, nature and animals and music, having something that you feel connected to. That's reciprocal, that you feel understands you, that gets you, that sees you, that you trust, that trusts you. Research has shown real recently that, one of the things that contribute to addiction is the lack of connections, and what we're seeking is connections. And one of the things that helps people stay in recovery is connections. So it's all about upgrading your relationships, upgrading your connections. And even in the speaking of addiction, people have learned to upgrade their addictions. They went from being addicted to a drug to addicted to music, or addicted to love, or addicted to dancing, for lack of a better phrase. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Beautiful. Well, I definitely want to encourage people that if you're feeling inspired by Roland's approach, which is, I love his approach of meeting people where they're at, go to his website, and it's RolandWilliamsConsulting.com. RolandWilliamsConsulting.com. And he can do everything from interventions to program development, consulting. And when you go to the website, you're going to really see all the different approaches that he takes, his offerings, everything from being a treatment provider to someone that that's got a problem. And you can learn a lot more about what Roland has to offer. Again, he works with our friends over at wholehearted.org, AJ and company. And we've always enjoyed having him on this show. And I can see that he's done a lot of different shows, a lot of things. Also, cultural considerations. I think that's really powerful. So his phone number is right there. His email address is right there. RolandWilliamsConsulting.com.
Thank you.
Roland, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence today. I'm so grateful for your presence, not only on our show, but in our world. Thank you. Blessings to your wife and your family. Good health.
Thank you.
We are going to hear from TJ Woodward, who was my coach when I went through my tough time. He did a pre-recorded video for us. And we're also going to hear from Rodgers, who's got some wonderful support. But we're going to take a little break here, and we're going to bring up one of my favorite human beings on the planet, and that is Summer Joy Raymer. And first of all, thank you, Summer. It's through the Sign Network that you and your husband, John, get us out to as many as 100. I think the record was 175 one time, different Facebook groups and pages. So thank you so much for helping the awakening world reach so many people.
Yeah, well, I just want to just start by thanking, of course, Scott and Omashar, but most importantly, India and Roland, just, not only what you're offering, but the journey and the courage of your recovery. And I really just feel humbled, and I in some ways like sort of speechless. The transition into what I'm sharing feels like but I'm just so grateful to be here and to listen. And I, as an American too, I do feel that we are at a time in our country that, and I don't think many people talk about it, but it's like there's this subtle background of so many of us are addicted to all sorts of things. And maybe there's like the conversation of recovery for, certain levels, but I do think it's like the coping with the challenges that are going on in the world are unbelievably overwhelming. The mental health challenges, and I just feel so much of the how here in this room. Just like being at both of your feet of what you both do and what you offer. And thank you. And I always, with Scott, I just feel that what you bring into the space and for the awakening world is, a true salve of these times. And I personally don't have a deep journey of recovery, but I think one of the challenges that of life right now for me is the ongoing journey of dealing with grief, along with the extraordinary visions and wishes of change in the world, is like how to work with grief. And I think that I feel some strong, deep parallels as just really hearing India and Roland talk about the recovery, but also the compassion and the honoring one's journey, that there isn't one journey. And that's one thing that I would say about grief that I feel as I am a little over a year and a half after my dad's passing, that something that I've felt really deeply is that every single person doesn't grieve and deal with loss the same way. And it seems like here, as you're talking about recovery and what that journey looks like, no one does that the same way either. That there's like the steps, right? And then there's like this weaving, human journey that we're all on that is, I think, a lot more like the tree behind me. You just can't say, well, next week my branch is going to go straight out, or so just in
Since
light
you
of
brought it up, India, Roland, do either of you have anything you want to say about grief? How
okay.
that kind of ties into what we're talking about today?
I think Summer nailed it. I think that there is, and we have so many people tend to project so many ideas about what grief should look like. And, like you're not crying. I remember my sister passed away and I went back to Chicago to bury my sister. I was crying uncontrollably. She was the closest person to me in my life. And my aunt, who was older than me, the matriarch of the family, she kept saying, you got to hold it together. You got to hold it together. You got to be strong. You got to be strong. And my wife at that time, we weren't even married. Yes, we were. No, we weren't. My wife was telling me, no, you don't have to be strong. It's okay to cry. And, some people cry, some people don't cry. Some people get over it and, in 6 months, some people it takes 16, 20 years. I mean, there is no way to grieve. People grieve how they grieve. And people need permission for that. My experience is people need permission. They need to be validated that it's okay. That you're feeling what you're feeling, when you're feeling it, how you're feeling it, etc. And I think that was the most important lesson to me. And then lastly, I have a dog. We see some dogs in here, and I've always had dogs. My dog just wants to be next to me. He's a big old bull, two of them. One's a big old bulldog, and they just want to be, they just want to be close to you. He doesn't have to say anything. He doesn't have to bark. He doesn't have to sit on my lap. He just wants to be close to me. And sometimes with the grieving, it's just being close, just your presence. I'm grieving over someone who's dying right now. He's not even dead yet, but we know he's at the end of his life, and we're making plans accordingly. And there's a grief that happened. I don't know what to say. All my counseling skills go out the window when this is what's going on. But just being there, like Max is sitting at my feet right now, just being in close proximity seems to be enough. So I love what Summer said, and I agree with her 100%.
Beautiful. My father was my best friend, and he died when I was very young. He died when I was 22. He was only 61. And I mean, he was my best friend and my dad, and I didn't cry. And 3 years went by. And one of the things that my dad and I always did was we went to baseball games together. I grew up in LA, and we were big Dodger fans. And that was what we did. We went to Dodger games. And I stopped going to Dodger games when Dad died. And finally, after about 3 years, my best friend said, come on, buddy, let's go to a game. So I got in the car. Thank goodness he was driving, because the moment we came up the hill and I saw Dodger Stadium, I lost it. I went into convulsions. He had to pull over, and I crawled in the back seat and cried and wept like a baby 3 years later.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just never know. And it wasn't that I was trying to hold it together, it comes when it comes. My wife had been dead for quite a while. And one day I was getting something from the closet, and she had a Post-it way up on our linen closet, just a little Post-it saying what sheets are supposed to go there. I saw her Post-it, started crying. So it's like, you never know what's going to trigger. And it is so important for us to just honor our feelings and honor our process.
And I think just to circle into why you wanted me to come here today, Scott, India, did you want to share something?
I can, but I want you to go ahead because you're in the middle of a thought.
Okay. Well, I just think it's really relevant as that space of wherever, whoever's listening, and wherever you are in the journey of recovery, wherever you are in just the journey of being a human right now. It's like I think of Scott's ongoing prayer of maximum grace. I think that's just like something that we all need, is maximum grace on our journey. And part of what supports me is having a vision or having purpose. Often it does entail being at in a way of being supportive to a larger, to one other person, maybe a neighbor, a simple action with, I have 3 animals around me, like just, being supportive to the 2 cats or the dog, or, but then in the bigger picture of the world, of feeling into what are you dedicating your life to, or what are you dedicating the change you want to see in the world. And as I've been, still, I would say, the deep journey of the loss of my dad. Last year, during this work of the 99 Days of Peace through Unity, which is a massive opportunity for anyone to step into, that starts on June 17th. Last year at this time, I really felt my father, guiding me to service for the world in a way that supported my journey of grief and continues to be. And there's a tree in front of my house, a willow tree, and that's similar looking to this tree. And it really looks over me, and I see my father's face in this tree. And I feel it as I'm coming into another pattern, as India was talking about, that tracking our patterns, that I'm coming into this 99 days with a different space and a different vision. And one of the things that of my origins of why I'm here is the Garden of Joy. And I've been working on a book. So I have great respect for India. That's such a beautiful book. Seeing that, it was like, wow, Phoenix rising. I've been working on a book for over 3 years, and still is a journey, but I have a goal at the end of the 99 days to have the first draft of the manuscript complete. And with that, dancing is a big part of my book, and part of my medicine and salve of these times in this world is to continue dancing, to continue to support that place of being in my body. When I'm off in Netflix land, or I'm doing that empty mind scroll that's just, or having pizza instead of a salad, there's that place of, what is it that kind of brings me back to a place of what I know is the ultimate place I can be of best service. So I'm actually starting the 99 Days of Peace through Unity. I am going to be offering a dance that in my Zoom room, and I did this last year at the tail end of the 99 days, of 24 hours of dance in my Garden of Joy. And there is a preparation to holding that space that I see is holding it for the world, but it's also holding it for anyone to come into my Zoom room. And there is music playing, and it's like a deep medicine woman space that I'm holding that from. And I feel deeply called to be doing it starting June 16th at 11:11 Pacific, as the music will be turning on. There will be a space for the first hour that's really kind of for all of us to think about, what are our missions and visions for the world for 99 days? What is it that you really want to hold up? And it could be just an individual, that you are working on in your recovery journey or grief journey, but something to dedicate of the change that you wish to see in the world. And may it be held up by your joy. And then we will dance for 22 hours. People can come in and go. You don't have to stay in there for 24 hours, but that's what I'll be doing as I really am envisioning the planet and all life cared for from a place of joy.
Summer, let me give a little context so people understand what we're talking about, because it can get a little confusing.
Yeah.
So from just around the time she's starting her dance, there's a week, which is World Unity Week. And that's where there are, I guess now, hundreds of different events, projects. We're going to have a big kickoff. It'll be on Saturday night, June 17th. We're going to have a big Awakening World kickoff. And this 1 week is where we really kind of get our energy rolling, that then takes us into the 99 Days of Unity, which is pretty much here in the Northern Hemisphere, the summer season. For Adrina and people down below, it's the winter season. And the goal is that during these 99 days, we're all going to share with each other some project. I'm committed to finishing a book, or I'm going to I'm going to get a painting done, or I'm going to take this class, or we're going to expand the awakening world, whatever it is. So during World Unity Week, we're revving up the engines and we're all getting excited and getting ready. And then we make our commitment of what we're going to be doing during the 99 days. Now, Summer, talk about commitment. I just want to make sure everybody comprehends what she's going to be doing. She's going to be dancing live online for 24 hours. Now, it's a Zoom room. People come in. I came in last year. I'll come in again this year. And we come in and we dance with her, and we take over dancing for a little while. And so we dance, and maybe just like, the beautiful Rumi Sufi dancing, doing Sufi dancing, we get inspiration, spirit flows through us. So I just wanted to give context so people kind of knew what we were talking about. And there's a brand new Facebook page. I just got it from her this morning. And this is where you can learn more about her 24 hours of dancing through the Garden of Joy. I just clicked going. And so this is where you can get the information. And let's all dance with Summer. Let's all make sure that from the 16th to the 17th, sometime during that 24 hours, we come in and we dance with her. And amazing. I mean, imagine dancing for 24 hours. What's that like for you?
Yeah, well, and I want to say too that there are so many amazing opportunities to step into. And if you go to worldunityweek.org/participate, you can register, you can bring in your own missions, events that you're doing, that I really want to acknowledge. This is about serving like the holo movement, as this is an ignition of that. Is also the new earth rising is the vision of this bigger picture that starts with World Unity Week and goes through 99 days. So I did do this for the first time last year on September 22nd. And it's hard to explain, sometimes you just get a call from a deep place of it's time. And, I'm not a big talker. I'm more of a mover and shaker and catalyst of getting people really in their bodies. And so for me, it was a few weeks where I was eating very, very clean. I was not drinking any alcohol. I was not I just was wanting to really prepare myself in a good way so I can really hold that space clearly. And I think that made a really big difference. It was amazing. Some people just don't understand that I was not I didn't stop and take a nap. I had snacks and I was drinking water and, just taking care of my body as the 24 hours unfolded. And people came and went from, I never was alone, which it's fine if I am. I never feel alone because I'm really dancing with all life. And it was an amazing experience, Scott. And it's probably why I realize I've done this before in other lifetimes. This is part of my medicine. And I'm not done. And I don't think that I will be done until I really do see peace on earth. And I think that we all have a medicine on the other side, right, of the distractions and the recovery, and that place that actually wants you to go inward. I know there's a place inside myself that wants me to go in to the garden of joy that I call, and that there is a service for us. And so I really want to hold that place for the collective, for the world, for people to feel why they are here. We are here. This is incredible time to be alive. As my husband would say, we all got a really interesting ticket to be here at this time. What are we going to do with it, right? How do we want to feel, and what do we care about in this world? So it's wide-eyed. And I remember there were certain hours late in the night. I was outside for most of the time. And I remember sort of seeing feathered ones and animal patterns that I rarely do see that was happening at 4 a.m. out in my yard. And yeah, but music keeps going. Kristen Hoffman's song, The 99 Days of Peace or Unity, every hour that song comes in. So there is a cadence of the container and lots of other music that will be coming into. So
beautiful. Well, I just committed 2 days ago to a meditation, which is for me a challenge.
Yeah.
Waking up every morning by between 3 and 3:15 and being in meditation by 3:30, and holding that for at least an hour. And that's all new for me. I've never been a good meditator, but it's a commitment that I made, and I'm doing it. And it's challenging, but then it's like, you feel good about yourself. And Christian, by the way, is going to be on our show next Saturday night. Yes, next Saturday night, she's going to be on the show. She's going to do the world premiere of one of her new songs. And then on June 21st, she's doing an entire concert. So that's a Wednesday night. So instead of having an Awakening World that night, we're just going to direct everybody to Christian's concert on the 21st. Yeah. So we're all going to be... There's a lot going on with World Unity Week. We're going to be promoting it and talking about it. And I will be there dancing with you. I'll still be doing my 3 o'clock thing. So I'll come join you after my 3:30 to 4:30 meditation on that particular day.
And Scott, I just want to say too, stillness is a dance too. So I believe if you were to come in and sit in stillness or stand. I mean, I just really want people to know when they come in, there's not an expectation to be something different than who you actually are. Coming in, I know there were people that came in and just slept and would wake up and see the dancing happening. But I really want you to know there's an invitation for coming in and just being in the space, and whatever that looks like,
that's what I will do that day. So let's see, you start. So that would be the morning of the 17th.
Yeah. So the morning of that. So it goes from 11 a.m. Pacific on June 16th, which is the day before World Unity Week starts, at least in the Pacific time. And then all the way till June 17th, we will close the Zoom room at 11 a.m. Pacific. So 24 hours, a talking circle in the first hour, talking circle in the last hour, and 22 hours of movement and dance and ceremony. Yeah, the container will be, and it is in a space called the Cosmic Beloved Community Circle, which will be open for 99 days. There's lots of other things going on, but it's opening that portal. And radical collaboration will be happening in the Cosmic Beloved Community Circle room.
Beautiful. Summer, thank you so much. We'll be there. I'll be there, and I hope a lot of our global peace drivers will be there. And I'm going to turn it over to you, India. Any thoughts you want to share with Summer, or what comes up for you?
Oh my God, I could so relate to just about everything that you were sharing. Yeah, grief. I've lost my mom, I lost my dad, I lost my brother who was 59, I lost my dog who was killed, while under the care of someone else, and then I had a lot of my own grief, going through cancer and what that did to my body, and having a mastectomy and the grief from that. And, it's a lot. And one of the things that, since my life went into a collapse in 2008, it's when I started practicing non-attachment. And from people, places, and things, because I realized how emotionally dependent I had been on a lot of people. And in that, I started to understand what sovereignty meant. And sovereignty for me is about, I don't generally give a shit about what people think. And, and that's important for me, because there is no sovereignty when we're always worrying about what everyone else thinks.
Yeah.
Because if I'm worried about what you think and you think and you think and you think and you think, there is no space. It's like, this is how I feel. This is how I feel. I give myself permission. My book was supposed to actually be released a year and a half ago. It had been 2.5 years in the making. 4 days before I was supposed to publish it, like the universe just went, not now, and literally just like took it away from me. And I called my best friend, I FaceTimed her, which I never do unless it's scheduled. And I said, I know exactly what's happening. It wasn't finished. This is the universe telling me that I am not complete in my own process, because my book is about my process, which is everyone's process. And it's a we book, it's a workbook. And what I know is that, nothing, and I just completely lost my train of thought. Oh, what it was is that I said to my best friend, I go, I'm going to give myself permission to be disappointed and upset. And I gave myself an hour to cry. And I mean, I was really upset. I had this party. Everything was planned. I mean, there was a lot involved. And then I gave myself permission, and then I was done. I was done. Nobody has to give me permission. They don't have to validate my feelings. They're my feelings. And I spent my whole life, because I didn't know any different, worrying about what you thought and how this and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, it's too much. I am only responsible for my own feelings. And if I believe that my soul is on its own path, and I trust that everyone else is on their own path as well. And this is where I've learned how to hold space for people. I'm not here to judge. I try not to even judge my own life. When I trip over myself, when I fall short, when I, go rolling down the hill in the dirt, because I took what it seemed to be a wrong turn. I mean, some of my deepest medicine has come from my deepest contractions, because that's how it works. So I don't deny myself. I'm just like, man, this doesn't feel really good. But grief, I have learned that it's not just a mental and emotional and spiritual place, but ethereal. Letting it go energetically is as important as anything else. But giving ourselves permission to be where we are, to just be where we are. I mean, sometimes it's like I was just doing a little bit of fine tuning in my book that is a workbook. And, it really is just about, for me, when I can give myself permission to have compassion for myself. I mean, I was in a meltdown a couple months ago because a lot of big stuff was coming at me all at once. And I literally stood in my kitchen crying. And I was like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. I just kept touching myself. I was like, it's okay. Because one of the things that I have learned is that what I expect a lover to give me, my friends to give me, people, I want time, I want this, I want that. But am I giving all that to myself? Am I giving? And most of us don't give to ourselves. We want others to give it to us. And I was like, wow. So in a moment of, like, I was like 3, just having a meltdown. And what I wanted to do was to go outside myself for someone to fix my pain. And I just stood there and I just allowed myself to feel the cathartic experience I was in. And like clockwork, the next morning I woke up and I felt all this energy move. And the next day I felt like a completely different person, because I honored, and it's not easy. It's not easy. This is not easy. This is some hard shit here. But what I do No, and I've experienced this over and over again. The deeper the contraction, the higher the joy, because they happen in their polarities. The deeper you love someone, and if they go away, and however that is, the sadness is going to be in direct proportion to the love that we had for that person. And to just honor everything that we are all the time. It's so important, because if we don't honor it in ourselves, how can we honor that in others? We cannot give away what we don't have.
Absolutely. You know, I want to say, India, that as a coach, I often say that the pain we're in our relationship is in direct proportion to the love that we're missing.
Yep.
Always. It's like a mathematical equation. The more emotional pain you feel in relationship to some human being, it's the love that you're missing or the care that you're missing.
Yep.
And so what we can do is remember, instead of being in the mental mind fuck, put in my language, of
Fuckery.
what that person did wrong or how they're separated, because there's the pain of the separation, but then we can dive underneath it into the beauty of the love that we're missing, the longing, you know. And if it's someone who's passed away or that we no longer have access to, just dropping into the beauty of the love that we're missing. The word is bittersweet. It's bitter that we still miss them, and it's so sweet that we still miss them, right? It's bittersweet, Summer Joy, about your dad. It's bittersweet, India, about your family. We've got two more wonderful presenters that by video. We will come to you one more time, India, and please stick around, Summer. I know people are still writing to you in the chat box. But I'm going to I want to introduce everybody to my coach. When my wife passed away, I went through a period of drinking too much, and got referred to a wonderful coach named TJ Woodward. He has been on the show a few times. He really did a wonderful job with me, and he does a wonderful job with a lot of people. And his approach is very, very Scott. It's very compassion based. So Omashar is going to actually play a pre-recorded video. TJ was teaching all day today, so he couldn't join us live, but he did a pre-recorded video that just gives you a little bit of an introduction to his beautiful approach to conscious recovery. So Maestro Omashar, take it away. We're not hearing the sound though. Did you do the sound, optimize sound? I am so grateful to be back with someone I have such respect for. This is, of course, TJ Woodward, the author of Conscious Recovery and his new book, Conscious Creation. TJ was my coach, helped me through my dark time. And so whenever we're talking about recovery, I go straight to the master, the man who wrote the book on conscious recovery. So TJ, I'm going to hide myself and ask you to share with our audience, what is conscious recovery?
Wow. Well, thank you, Scott. I'm so honored to be here, and really so honored to have walked with you through your own process, because that's really what this is about. You know, I had my own many times dark night of the soul related to addiction and recovery, and it's now my honor to share that with as many people as possible. And you know me well, Scott, so you know I love to talk about this. So I'm so grateful to be here.
It's great to have you here, TJ.
Thank you. Thank you. So conscious recovery actually began as a result of my own journey. And when I talk about conscious recovery, I like to go way back to the beginning. And the reason I go back to the beginning is that it is important because it's the foundation of conscious recovery that might be a little different than some of the models. So what do I mean by that? I remember being a very young child and being absolutely filled with joy, very much in love with myself and the world, very much in an awareness of how lucky I was to be alive, how grateful I was for life. And I was born into a family where what people were saying, what people were doing, and the energy I was feeling were three totally different things. I remember watching TV and seeing war for the first time on TV. I remember hearing men talk about women in a derogatory way. I remember being present with my grandfather, who I loved dearly, and hearing him say things that were overtly racist and quite violent, actually. And the reason I start with that is this experience of being open, loving, and grateful shut down for me. And I say for me consciously, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. A wall came around my heart around the age of 7. And I know now that was me, what we would call survival mechanism. I've actually reframed it to call these things brilliant strategies. So it did save me from all of the things that were happening in my life. But it also protected me from the love and connection I truly desired. Why do I start with that? I start with that because the foundational principle of conscious recovery is underneath all addictive behavior is an essential self that is whole and perfect. That's what is different about conscious recovery than some of the models. And it's from my own story, and it's from many years of working with people who feel broken, who feel damaged, who feel the world isn't safe, who are living in a paradigm of scarcity, fear, and disconnection. And the starting point that there's a place within each of us that is unharmed and unharmable is a really different framework. So I got sober young, 1986, just before my 21st birthday, and around 18 months sober, I found myself suicidal. And the reason I was suicidal at 18 months sober is I hadn't done any of the deeper work of actually healing the underlying root causes of my addiction. I met a woman named Mary Helen who changed my life, who took me on a journey that it's really twofold. One, healing all the unresolved trauma, spiritual disconnection, and toxic shame that led to my addiction, while also reconnecting or becoming aware of that essential self that is still was within me and is within each and every one of us. So that became the foundation of conscious recovery. And I could just talk forever, Scott, you know that, but I started working in the field in 2008. I don't know if you want me to get into all of that at this point, but that really is the foundation of conscious recovery. We can heal. There is a place within us that's whole and perfect. Recovery is not about becoming something. It's about unbecoming and returning to that essential self.
Wow. You know, what I loved so much about working with you is that in Love Coach Academy, that's our teaching also, that we're not here to evaluate or diagnose what's wrong with someone. We're here to help them remember how wonderful they are and that life is hard. That, you know, what they think is wrong with them is that they are dealing with very difficult circumstances. And so your reminder of that we are whole and perfect, and it's about coming back to that place. I just yesterday posted on Facebook a meme of Yogananda saying the greatest sin is to think of ourselves as sinners. We are all just children of God. You know,
that's right. Yeah.
So,
and
for the person who's in shame, and honestly, that was my thing. I had shame when I would drink too much after my wife died. And I'd have shame that I was, you know, I was hungover, and then the shame would feed the part of me that then wanted to escape. And so what I loved about your work that was so profound was how it changed the cycle of shame. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I have identified one of the root causes of addiction as toxic shame, and that's as a result of coming into the world and having these series of events that are traumatic, also known as being born on planet Earth, and then also disconnecting from our true nature and starting to develop this shame core, or this belief that we're broken. And as a starting point, we want to look at how that shame is continuing to perpetuate itself. So what I mean by that is, if I'm walking around with a core false belief, and I like to call them core false beliefs rather than core beliefs, because I want to acknowledge that they're lies that we've picked up about ourselves. And it's much more than a thought, it's a frequency, right? So if I'm walking around with the belief that I'm unlovable, then I act that way in the world, and I unconsciously choose partners to confirm that. And as you're saying, that's the shame spiral, right? I feel broken, I act broken, and then I feel more shame because of the behavior. And we're in this downward spiral where we can say, see, look, I am unworthy. See, look, I am unlovable. This person just left me. All the conclusions that we come to actually create the evidence. And this is really huge. It's not the evidence creates the conclusion. It's that we have usually very early in our lives decided these fundamental truths, which of course are not true, core false beliefs. And then we walk around vibrating with that frequency and we replicate that, or we continue to draw in or be attracted to situations to confirm that. So the way we interrupt that is to pause, to unplug from the behaviors and start to look at the shame itself, and then start to, through vulnerability and authenticity, have a way, a safe place to start sharing these things so that we're not acting from that. Then the deeper work is going back and looking at where these core false beliefs originated and how do we actually go back and heal them, because we can.
So question for people that are, again, either dealing with addiction or compulsive behavior, or they have someone close to them. What do you think? Well, let's start with the person who has a friend, right? Because I know you always have great advice about what to do and what not to do when wanting to support somebody that you love that's lost in a compulsive cycle or an addictive cycle. So what's your words of wisdom for that situation?
Well, I think what we want to start with is what the paradigm, how it's been established, looking back, and that has been some version of what we once called tough love. I don't know if we're still saying that. I don't think tough and love actually are congruent. I think they're two different things. So this idea that I'm going to withhold my love from you unless you get better is something that I think has run its course. Mm-hmm. I think people are still believing that works, but it doesn't seem to be working. So what I'm saying here is, I'm really inviting someone to ask the question, how am I viewing my friend, my loved one, my child, my parent? How am I viewing that person? Am I saying what's wrong with them? Or am I saying what is the pain that they're managing? Right? So compassion is the key. Now, it's tricky when it's someone closest to us. A wise person once said to me, it's often more difficult for the people closest to the person with an addiction to actually help them. So I want to be clear. We want to bring in professionals, bring in support groups, because sometimes I'm the last person that can help someone that's really close to me. Now, why is that? Because we have so much history. I've worked with parents and I have so much compassion for them. They are afraid they're going to get that phone call at 3 a.m. that their child is dead. And having compassion for that, and if I say to them, well, don't look at your child as broken, look at them as whole and perfect, that might be a big leap for them. So we might say, are you looking at them through the lens of what's wrong with them? And is there someone you can bring in that can see for them that which they can't see for themselves? In other words, if I can't see that for my nephew, for my sister, for my loved one, is there someone who I can invite into the equation that can? Because that is how we actually begin to change. We can go into a whole conversation about the quantum field, but if I'm looking at someone as broken, it creates more brokenness. Shame doesn't heal shame, only love will do that. And so if I'm not capable of that, let's bring in some people to help out.
And if it's so funny that you use that analogy, because one of my best friends right now has exactly that situation. Her son is drinking, he's had a DUI, he hasn't resolved it, and she's really so afraid of getting that phone call. What about support for the person in that situation for themselves? Self-empathy, self-care.
Well, I want to start by saying there's nothing wrong with you. And that may sound like an obvious statement to some of us, but for the people I've worked with who are going through an addiction, they have a difficult time often believing that. Now, you and I, Scott, we would actually say, we wouldn't say there's nothing wrong with you. We would say you're whole and perfect. But to start with what they're not is important, because shame, as we've discussed, brings on the behavior that could be seen as shameful, and then there's more shame. So if I come in and say, yeah, why do you keep doing this? This is causing so much pain. We want to start saying, what's underneath this? What is the addiction trying to manage. You know, I think about anger. We send people to anger management classes. And what I want to say is, rather than sending someone to a class to learn how to manage their anger, we want to say, what is the anger managing? Now, that's the same with addiction, right? Not what's wrong with you. Why do you keep doing this? This is insane. Why are you jeopardizing your relationship, your job, you know, all the things that we could point to in the behavior. And we might want to say, what is really happening for you? In what way is your addiction brilliant? And I know for some people, that's a stretch. I remember when I was working in treatment full time and I would say to a client, tell me all the ways cocaine has been wonderful to you. They would look at me like, what are you talking about? Every counselor is telling me how bad cocaine is and I shouldn't be doing it. I said, well, let's start with all the ways that it's been really wonderful in your life, because I have this profound idea. We don't change unless we want to. So how do we help someone get in touch with what they really truly want? And that's a starting point for them to start looking at if the behavior, the addiction, the substance use, whatever it is it actually bringing them what they desire? And in most cases, it's not. Then they can start to be empowered to make the change.
That is one of your great geniuses. And it's something that I so appreciate, because it's really true. It's like, don't blame, don't shame, but align. It's really it's an Aikido move, right? You know, you're not confronting, you're redirecting the energy. So it's beautiful. All right, this is just a homeopathic dose of TJ Woodward medicine. And I really want to encourage everybody right now to go to his website, consciousrecovery.com. Consciousrecovery.com. There he is, dancing in the background. Doing a little gig. And what I love about how you've set this up is people can pick, like, which of these situations are they? So perhaps, I know we have a lot of healing professionals in the audience, and perhaps you're a person in recovery or wanting to be in recovery. I also, if you're really appreciating what TJ has to say, get his book. His book is wonderful. I've bought a couple copies for friends. I read it. My copy got so tethered because it's got all the yellow highlighters and everything in it. It's a beautiful, powerful book. And maybe just take a look at his core principles, because this man, he's the next level of recovery. He's the next level of really bringing compassion into this very difficult circumstance of when any of us have gotten lost in what started as a brilliant idea. So
that's right. Well, thank you, Scott. Yeah, I just want to add to what you're saying, that what my intention for conscious recovery is to be something that can help someone, regardless of where they're at, what support group they're going to. You know, the mind is an interesting thing, and many times people will say, is it a replacement for something? Absolutely not. It's an enhancement to whatever you're doing. So if you're in therapy, if you go to Refuge Recovery, Smart Recovery, AA, NA, this is a book and a workbook. There's courses. It really is more a framework. And that framework, as we've been discussing, can sound fundamentally different than some of the other frameworks, but that doesn't mean it's incongruent with the other ones. I know for myself that the number one thing that helped me in the beginning was support and community. Conscious recovery in some ways doesn't offer that. We don't have support groups yet. We have a few that are kind of springing up throughout the country. At this point, the key is to find people that you can connect with that are loving and supporting. And then my hope is conscious recovery can offer an additional layer, if you will, asking the question, what if there's a place within you that's whole and perfect? And what if the addiction was brilliant when it began, as Scott said, and then what if it is no longer serving you the way it once did? Start asking those questions, because, you know, Scott, you and I are a big believer in curiosity. Asking questions, being open. So conscious recovery doesn't have answers. It has a whole lot of questions, though.
And they're beautiful questions and beautifully designed. TJ, God bless you. There is a special place in heaven for you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's my pal. That's TJ Woodward, and I strongly recommend him. He doesn't see too many clients anymore, so probably the best bet is to get his books, which you can again get by going to tjwoodward.com. And I see that Summer put the link to the dance. Yeah, you know, George is asking, will there be a recovery group in Twin Ray community? That's a good idea. It doesn't exist now, but this community is growing very rapidly and there's a lot of wonderful things taking place. So that's another show. We'll talk more about that on another show for sure. I'm going to bring you up, India. Anything that you want to reflect on about what you heard from TJ? And then we're going to listen to one more video and then we've got an Omashore song. So it's a longer show today, everybody.
Yeah,
India-
I'm like, man, he's like my doppelganger. I'm like, I could really relate to him. Because my book is also a workbook. And I basically tell you to write in it, turn the pages down, let's do some burning rituals in the back. But there was a lot of things that he touched on that I really related to. And, you know, for me, I think it's imperative that everyone seek what it is that works for them. And, you know, for me, and I have watched people go in and out of recovery for a long time, tread over and over and over. And, you know, I just observe it. And one of the things that I'm really fascinated and really bringing into my work this year is working with families, working with the whole family of the drug addict or the alcoholic, because it's not just them. It's the whole unit. It's the whole unit. I spent time teaching at a women's trauma center. They lowered the age from 22 for women to 18. And at one point, they only take 8 women. They had 8 women there and all of them were under the age of 21. And I got to be really close with the founder and she said, you know what's really interesting, India? And I said, it's the parents that are fucked up. Excuse my language. And she was like, absolutely. And I said, there you go. You're going to send your kids off because you believe that they're the problem. And TJ said this, I have the same philosophy. The bully isn't a bully because the bully wants to be a bully. The bully is in trauma. Your outward behavior is a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of who you are. You're angry, you're violent. There's something going on with you that is unhealed. Nobody just wants to be an asshole. Nobody does. That's not what anyone's intention is. But when you've got a lot of trauma that you haven't dealt with in your life, I mean, you're just going to come out guns a-blazing. And I really believe that, you know, we all are here for a purpose. We're all here for a purpose. We live in a massive galaxy. Planet Earth is very small. And to believe for a moment that Earth exists, that the entire galaxy exists so that humanity can grow up, go to college, find a mate, have kids, and go into debt is the only reason that we're here. We got to ask some deeper questions. We ask some deeper questions to understand our soul's purpose. Our soul's purpose that we live out through the 3D experience. And that's why it's so important that everyone takes responsibility for their joy and their happiness. Because if I'm someone that isn't full of joy and happiness, and you're expecting me to give it to you, that doesn't even make sense. We're all always seeking everyone else to change, everyone else to behave differently, because if you behave differently, I'll feel better.
Yeah.
If you would change, if you would change, if you would change, I would feel better. In the work that I do, Scott, it starts at self-awareness. I do a 4-step process and it starts at self-awareness. And it's unwinding, unwinding, unwinding. Because when we learn how to unwind ourselves, and I'm not talking about trauma, I'm talking about things that have gone on in our life that we're holding on to. Trauma is very different, and I'm not a trauma counselor or a trauma therapist. But when we are responding only from those wounds, and this is why triggers are so important, because the trigger shows us where we're not healed. The trigger always shows us where we're not healed. And what we do is that we go into the victim mentality, because that's what our society teaches us. We become the victim of our circumstances. Ask me how I know this. Ask
How do
me.
you know this? How do you know this?
Yeah, because I have a whole book on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'm like, well, if all this shit happened to you, you would be the victim as well. I mean, I had a sponsor one time, my little back house got robbed, and I called her up and I'm complaining. It's like 10:30 at night and I'm upset, and I'm like 27 years old and I'm flipping out. And she was like, stop being the victim. I said, I am the victim. It says so on the police report. And I didn't understand for like 2 decades what that meant. And it wasn't until I started going into self-awareness, not awareness of others, self-awareness. Only then did things start to shift for me, because our troubles are of our own making. They are. And when we can use all these things that seemingly happen to us when they're actually happening for us, we learn to embrace and find gratitude in the medicine of that, versus becoming the victim of what happened. And then we go into that lower vibrational spin.
Mhm.
And now there we are. And the reason that I said earlier that I don't operate from a place of right or wrong or good or bad or this or that. I remember sitting in a coaching session with my own coach about 5 years ago now. And, you know, you sit knee to knee and you can't get away. You know what I mean? Like, she's right there. And I was just flipping out because the only emotion I knew was anger. And for a whole hour and a half, I'm like, mother bumpa IRS. I mean, man, I was just losing it. And at about the end of that 90 minutes, I'm looking up in the corner of the temple we were sitting in, and I said, I'm not even going to be upset about how bad my behavior has been in this session, because it was so angry. And I said, I actually feel the energy moving out of my body. And she goes, and I can see it moving out of your body. And again, this is why giving ourselves permission to be where we are in our feelings and not stuffing them is so important. It's the responsibility we have to ourselves. It gets us closer to being in sovereignty. And therefore we can feel better about the choices that we're making, because we're not doing them for someone else. We're not doing them for someone else. My way might be wrong if I try to tell you how to do it.
We still have to hear from Annie Rodgers, and we usually end the show 20 minutes ago. And this is so valuable. So I'm still looking for that link for people to, so I'm going to play one more video, then we'll come back to you, India. Again, India is going to be doing a book reading, partial book reading today. So we want to support her with that. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Eleanor Joy, Terry. And we're going to go to one last short video. It's from my friend Ann Rodgers, who has a very important part of a tool for conscious recovery. Maestro Omashar, take it away. Hey, everybody, I am with someone that I love and adore. This is Ann Rodgers. Now, some of you old timers have seen Ann on the show before. We've been friends for a long time. But in addition to friendship, she was my personal NAD coach when I went through a process of cleansing and wanted to change my relationship to alcohol. Ann and her products really helped. And it helped me to understand and learn all about the value of NAD. I used it, and I've been really clean as a result of her support. So when I knew we were going to do another show about recovery, I knew we had to have Anne on the show. So Anne, for people that are new, please tell them about what NAD is and how it works.
You know, NAD isn't a drug. It's not even really a supplement. It's an enzyme, and it's something that's already inside of our bodies. It's responsible for repairing our DNA. It's in our mitochondria. NAD is made from tryptophan or niacin. And when we do boosting with NAD, there's many ways to administer it. There's nasal sprays, sub-Q shots, patches, IV, lots of different ways to absorb NAD. There's certain methods that will produce different results or go to a different level. But NAD is really touted as an anti-aging supplement. And so people are taking it for brain clarity. You know, it's a mood enhancer. It's great for depression, anxiety, PTSD, things like that. We don't have negative reactions to NAD. It just tends to be an incredibly safe product that your body uses to boost its own NAD level. And then all kinds of things wake up. Your body just seems to wake up. It seems to heal what it needs to heal and repair. It's a great adjunct to any kind of treatment or therapy you're doing in conjunction with it. It's like a pal. It's a good friend. You know, it really supports you in any kind of transition.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I did it, I used the patches,
Yeah.
and they were so easy. And it's true. And look at, I mean, not bad for 107 years old. Right?
Well, you know, I have had clinics with the IV for 11 years. We did nonstop IV NAD because we're doing high doses because we're taking people off opiates, alcohol, benzodiazepine, and things like that. So it's just incredibly expensive. And it takes a lot of hours. We're talking 60 hours of IV over 10 days. That's a huge amount of investment, and made this discovery. The only other method that I know of that I think is comparable to the IV is the certain type of patches that I've discovered, which are fresh and frozen. They're kind of like, we treat them like stem cells. You know, we ship them on dry ice. They're individually made little syringes like this with the NAD in there. And you just hold it in your hand and thaw it. You put it on a patch like this, and it infuses anywhere from 4 hours to 12 hours, depending on the type of patch you use. So it took what used to be $1,000 ordeal and took it to a much under $100 type thing. And so now we can do not just addiction, but all kinds of chronic illnesses and issues like that. So it made the recovery process so much more affordable in terms of using NAD. So if you know.
It's good to see that. It's like, oh, wow, there's my old friends, you know, and just be clear for everybody, the syringe, it doesn't have a needle. It just has a hole.
No, it's just a little cap like that.
A little cap, and you
if I hold this long enough, it'll be thawed out into liquid in a minute. You just hold it and you put love into it and you put it on the patch. The thing with the patches is I found with the IV, because we had a patient house when we did detox, and we put the IV around the clock on them, and we got through withdrawals much quicker that way. So the flexibility of using these fresh frozen transdermal patch with a patch is you can literally go around the clock. So when you're doing withdrawal, you do it morning, afternoon, and as you sleep. And we accelerate the recovery process that much better, so that when you're ready for therapy, when you're ready for trauma work, when you're ready for lifestyle change, you don't have to deal with the brain fog. You don't have to deal with the post-acute withdrawal and the dragging and the low energy and all that. So this just speeds it up, gets you ready to go, ready for the next step. So. And
it works. I've used it myself, everybody. So here's how you get it. It's really easy. Just go to NAD Concierge, nadconcierge.com. This is where it's the beautiful website. There's Annie, describes what it does, how to work it. And then you can call for a consultation or just fill out this little form. And it's really cool. They send it right to your door. It's very inexpensive. It works. And I'm so grateful for you and for what you have brought to our world, and really how you found a way to get this important part of the process of getting healthier. And not just for recovery, like she said, it's anti-aging. And I absolutely noticed the difference with myself. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do. There we go. There's Annie. And I really do encourage people to utilize it. It's a great, great resource. Again, like she said, people used to have to go get IVs and it was extremely expensive. And in AD, she's found a really wonderful way. And I noticed that it really, really helped me reduce my compulsion. That part of me that was like, oh, it's getting late. It's tonight. Am I going to drink? Just went away, you know? So, all right. It's been quite a full show. India, have you, where do we stand with telling people how they can join you today?
I think I just finally got it over to you because it wasn't working. I don't know. Everyone was having problems. I think I just emailed it to you. So I have a book coming out June 27th called Burning Down the House. It is about death and rebirth over and over and over again. And this afternoon we are starting, we have a book launch team. So anyone that is interested in reading the book, it's a workbook. So through my story, and then there's questions behind each chapter, asking you if you can see yourself, you know, whether it's my shadow, my victim consciousness, my alcoholism, whatever the case may be. And so we're starting the kickoff this afternoon at 3:00 Pacific time. If you are interested in being on the book launch team, so you get to read the book before it gets published and to write a review. And this book is really it's about all of us. It's about all of us. We all have dark times. We all experience, you know, deep sadness, deep pain, deep grief, deep loss. And, you know, it's really the story of my journey and how I got myself off the battlefield. You know, how I came to love myself when I didn't feel very lovable for a very long time. And, you know, it's really about the journey of all of us. And if you would like to join us today at 3:00, I'm pretty sure I got you the correct link, Scott. And if you want to go in and sign up, we can quickly send you the Zoom link before it starts at 3:00 today. Would love for you to join us. It's 170 pages, probably 150 are readable. I read the whole thing yesterday in 8 hours. That's how long it takes. Read the whole book. I didn't do.
And how much are you going to read today, dear? How much?
I don't know because Nicole is actually running it. And so she's got some, you know, activities threaded in. I'm going to read a little bit. She's going to pick something out. I'm going to talk about it, share about it. So yeah, it's going to be really fun and I'm super excited. It's been 5 years in the making.
Unfortunately, I still don't have a link at my email address. So Omoshar is going to do our closing song.
Okay.
The best bet is just put the link into the chat box here. Put the link into the Zoom chat box, India.
Well, I'm going to have to figure out because I have it on my phone.
We need the URL and it's not coming to my email address. So we need to get the actual URL so I can put it in the chat box.
Okay. Could we actually just give them my website since it's super easy?
Sure. And go back to indiazoe.com.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's what I've been promoting. So
Okay.
I will put that back in one more time.
All right.
India, thank you for sharing so much. God's blessings. And I hope some of our people join you at 3:00 today.
Thank you. Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much, Scott.
God bless you. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Yes, thank you, Summer.
Omoshar. Wow, what a show, huh?
Very powerful, Scott. I'm just, I'm blessed today. We've got some insight into things that we've all been dealing with, I'm sure, throughout our lives. And I know I've had several addictive places in my life, and I was really especially intrigued with TJ's approach. Holy smoke, what an amazing man. And just to realize that what is my addiction managing? Really, yes, what a great way to do it. You
It
know,
all starts as a good idea, you know. It starts as a good idea. Summer, I wanted to see if there's anything you wanted to say to close out before we go to Omashar. Did you have any final words or thoughts?
No, just grateful for, all the community too, like I know for all of us, it takes a village to really show up and care and do things in the world, bring books, launch music. It's, the 24-hour event is with thousands of different people and events and co-sponsors and just so grateful that the Global Peace Tribe is look at that amazing circle too. Is that the Global Peace Tribe?
could be.
Yeah. And just, trust and love. That's all.
Thank you, Summer. Thank you for all the love you bring. Looking forward to dancing with you, and give your husband a big hug for us.
Oh, I will, and I do. And hugs right back to both Omashar and India and just all of the depth here. I pray for those that are really needing this, that they receive it and find a place to get help.
Take care, dear. Talk to you soon. See you soon. Omashar?
Yes, indeed. Here's a group song. The lyrics are in the chat on YouTube and Facebook. Just sing along when you pick up the lyrics. And so we got here.
And Summer, I hope you'll do some dancing for us. Get us going. I know Eleanor Joy's queued up. She's ready to dance. I see Nitya's ready. So here we go. India.
Here with my family, heaven is in my heart. I sing of the love I am, and know we're never apart. One heart, one love, one life we live. One heart, one love, one life we live. Here with my family, heaven is in my heart. I sing of the love I am, and know we're never apart. One heart, one love, one life we live. One heart, one love, one life we live. Here with my family, heaven is in my heart. I sing of the love I am, and know we're never apart. There is only one heart, one love, one life we live. One heart, one love, one life we live. Last time. Here with my family, heaven is in my heart. I sing of the love I am, and know we're never apart. One heart, one love, one life we live. There is only
Fantastic. We even got George Noble up. We even
I
got George
know.
Noble up dancing. George, you got up dancing, and
It's so cool watching everyone dance. And Summer,
Summer
you
took us outside. My gosh, that was fun.
Yeah.
Also some
Oh,
motivation to clear my clutter.
All right.
very impressive, George. Well, hey, everybody. Next week, all three of our shows are about living our life, creating our Dharma through creative expression. 3 shows, Wednesday night, Saturday, and Sunday, with everybody from Kristen Hoffman to Ilse Faye, Trish. Omashar will be co-hosting with Trish and I on Wednesday, and co-hosting with Tangela and I on Saturday, and of course, with me again on Sunday. So it's going to be a great series of shows. I'm going to go to gallery view one more time. Let's all wave goodbye. Share this show with people, everybody. We all know somebody who could learn from this show, especially tonight's topic. Please do share what we're doing. There's Terry Russo. Awesome. So thank you for turning on your cameras. There's Scotty Satori and Dia and so many of our friends. So let's share this out. There's Bonnie and Roger. I love you guys. Share this show. It's important. Take care, everybody. See you soon. And have a beautiful, beautiful Sacred Sunday.